Alright folks, this is going to be another one of those fans only productions. All I'm going to do is talk, the editing is going to be minimal, and the material is probably going to be considered pretty dry by most. So I would imagine those looking for entertainment value probably go find something else to watch right now. So for everybody else, thanks for sticking around. We'll get started right now. To the algorithm police. We're not building anything on a gun here. All I'm doing is installing a set of sights, which is well within the limits of the terms of service. So please don't fling my video down the memory hole. All right. Hey there, folks. How you doing today? Hope all is well for you. Happy Sunday. You'll have to excuse my mess here. I was in the process of manufacturing something earlier today here in the barn, and my desk is covered, completely covered in shavings from the milling machine. So I've had a lot going on, and I didn't get a chance to clean up after myself. So I'm sorry, I apologize. I'll try to do better next time. I had somebody commented on a video earlier today. And he said that the comments received on the channel must really bother me. That's what he said. And to be completely fair with you, he's right. When people say ignorant things without thinking about what they're saying, and they leave it in the comment section where somebody who might be looking for an answer goes and reads it and is misinformed, yeah, that bothers me. I don't know how I'm going to like these. They were cheap. Black Friday special from Delta Team Tactical. Can't say that one because they sell things that violate the terms of service. So suffice it to say, they sell items that some people would find useful. I got these for little of nothing. We're going to check them out and see how they do, and there will be a review on them in the future. So, and just to show you, I do wear safety squints when I'm firing a milling machine. All right, let's see what we got here. And yes, folks, this item is safe and empty. It's never even had anything in it. So let's do a real quick function check. Looks like it works. All right. Well, anyway, I said all that to say this. Earlier today, while I was working on something with the milling machine, I found out that the front of, there's a little pocket in the item that has some moving parts in it. And that little pocket was just a little bit snug up in the front for some of the moving parts. So because the item was partially assembled, it no longer fit into the cradle, we'll call it that holds it while you, and so I wound up having to take it back to the machine and do those last few dimensional modifications by hand. And when you're holding it by hand, you really want to make sure you don't mess things up. So I went and got my trusty headlamp, and I was able to look right down inside and see what I was doing. And so I wanted to talk about headlamps a little bit in relation to readiness. I figured that was something simple that we could cover. We're going to cover a few things in this video, but for one, this headlamp was not especially cheap. It's not a real expensive one. I think it was like 25 bucks, something like that. And I use this one mainly when I'm working on the automobile. It's got you can adjust it forward and backward. I've got kind of an enormous head, and as you can see, it doesn't really sit on my forehead like it would for some people, but I can sit it up here and I can adjust it pretty much where I want it to go. And so what I was thinking is, I don't really think there's a need for that in a bug out bag. I don't think that's necessary, but maybe in a get home bag. You know, Tony had kind of mentioned it, and that got me thinking about it. Your get home bag probably means something happened that's impeding you from getting home, and so you need to utilize that bag. And that could be something as simple as, you know, you get a blowout on the side of the road after dark when you're trying to get home, or for whatever reason your car won't start, and maybe you're in a dark parking lot and your car won't start and you need to either jump it, or maybe you were able to go pick up a battery and now you got to try to put it in or whatever, but it's dark outside. And if anybody who's ever done those kind of things knows, it's rather difficult to work with two hands and hold a flashlight. So maybe for the get home bag, for the one that goes in your car, or that you take to class with you when you're out away from your dorm or whatever, maybe that get home bag, instead of a handheld flashlight, or hopefully even in addition to a handheld flashlight, you have some kind of headlamp device. I went and picked this one up a couple of days ago. It's 415 lumens, so it's quite bright. Let me see if I can show you there. I mean, it puts out a substantial amount of light. Has 3 different settings. But then something else that's kind of nice is it also has a red light model for if you're trying not to destroy your night vision. That's nice. And this was about $20 at the local Wally World. Some of you remember we were talking about budget alternatives to tactical flashlights, and I recommended this Coast PS250, which I thought it was 250 lumens. Turns out it's actually 390 lumens on its brightest setting. But while it's not an ideal tactical light, for $15, it does have a press sensitive switch. Rest assured that if you need to momentarily light something up, it does come on its brightest setting. I'll try that in English. Its brightest setting first, and then the other settings are additional clicks. So for a budget alternative, I think that's a pretty good one. It's such a good one, in fact, that I went ahead and I picked up another one. It's actually going to go in the get home bag with that headlamp that I'm putting together for my wife's vehicle. So I wanted to talk about readiness this week, having that readiness mindset. We're not talking about TOAKI or SHTF necessarily. I mean, could it happen? Yeah, it could happen, but more realistically, again, I just want you thinking about contingencies. And something that came up this week, and I made note of it, and I wanted to share it with y'all because I thought it was important, is on a regular basis, probably 3 or 4 times a week, I receive messages as part of a chain message protocol that my wicked stepmother initiated a while back. Without fail, she sends these messages to me and as many other people as the cell phone service allows her to, And while for the most part I just kind of read and delete some of the stuff, I enjoy receiving the messages because it allows me to know that she is upright and breathing and situation normal on her end. Again, it's difficult to stay in close contact with everybody all the time. Most of you understand that, I'm sure. But anyway, I said that to say this. My stepmother quit sending me text messages about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I know most of you are saying, well, what's the downside? Well, the downside was I got to wondering, it's like, well, is she okay? So I sent her a message and I did not receive a reply. And so then I sent her another message and I didn't receive a reply. And I was like, well, shoot, what's going on with this lady? So I tried to call her and I didn't receive a reply. So, at first it's like, well, maybe she's mad at me because she knows I'm deleting her messages. I don't know. But then I got to thinking about it and said, well, no, maybe it's something else. So I asked and nobody really knew. So about the time I really started to get concerned about her, I received a message from her and she said, hey, I'm sorry. My phone went on the fritz and it took me a couple of weeks to get a new one. And I didn't have your number. But then by trial and error, I dug through messages that were popping up when I set up my new phone and I figured out who you were. So that got me thinking about something, and I realized it was a long-winded way of getting around to it. But how many of you have a little black book? How many of you have important numbers written down somewhere in case you lose your cell phone or in case your Google account suffers some kind of catastrophic failure and you have to start over from scratch? It's not far-fetched to say that you could lose all your contacts. And while certainly, at one extreme, you say, well, they could take out the cell towers and then you wouldn't be able to contact anybody. Well, if they took out the cell towers, you probably couldn't make a landline call anyway. I haven't had a landline in over 10 years. Several of my colleagues have said the same thing. They don't have a landline. And even if you did have a landline, it probably runs off of some kind of wireless service. So if the towers went down, you're not going to be able to call anybody regardless. But suppose you needed to meet up with somebody, and we talked about that last week. We talked about this Rand McNally Atlas. Suppose you needed to meet up with somebody, but you didn't have their address written down, or you didn't have their telephone number, and you lost your phone, or you got locked out of your contacts, or whatever happened, So maybe that's something to think about. Maybe get yourself a little notebook, write down some important stuff in it, maybe some bank account numbers and stuff like that, passport numbers, driver's license numbers. I would go so far as to say, if you are able to, maybe scan all of those important items and store them on a thumb drive as well. You could put that in your bug out bag, and then if something happened, you would at least have a backup digital copy of them. Just rattling my head thinking about some stuff like that. Again, this is an empty. This magazine's actually missing its spring, so it won't even function. I was just checking the mag release buttons on this thing. I haven't even shot it yet, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how it turns out. Because we have to remember that readiness or preparedness, I don't even really like that term, but we have to remember that it is a continual process. It's not just something that we do once and forget about. Go buy $1,000 worth of canned goods and say, oh, I'm ready for anything now. No, you have to do something. And even if, and I'm gonna say that this probably isn't too far out there for most folks, with inflation being what it is, commodities being at record highs or near record highs, it's hard to purchase the things to do this properly right now. And So, you know, a good portion of your developing readiness could be, you know, just mental preparation, you know, running yourself through scenarios. It's like, well, if this happens, what would I do? If this happens, what would I do? Sit and talk it over with your buddies, you know. Brainstorm, think about it. Run through scenarios in your mind. It'll help you to prepare for, you know, unpleasantries and what have you. But anyway, this video has gone on long enough. I will try to get some more content out in the very near future. I've got a couple of topics I want to talk about that kind of tie in with this one, and then there's some more fun stuff that I want to try to do too. But anyway, like, share, tell your buddies, leave a comment if you want to, unsubscribe if you're dissatisfied. But anyway, take care. God bless.